The moment Molly Lansing-Davis doubled over in pain, no one inside Charlie's pub realized how serious things were about to become. Across town, another secret plan was quietly unfolding, a plan so dangerous it could change everything for Jason, Morgan and Britt Westbourne forever. And if their gamble failed, Britt might not live long enough to see another sunrise. Because time was running out. Fast. At Willow Tate's house, the tension in the room was almost impossible to ignore. Alexis Davis stood across from Willow, her voice calm but her eyes full of concern. This wasn't just a casual visit. This was a desperate plea. Alexis stepped forward slowly, speaking carefully, choosing every word with the kind of care only a mother understands. She wasn't there to argue. She wasn't there to threaten. She was there mother to mother. Alexis begged Willow not to force Scout Quartermain to move back into that house. To Alexis, Scout needed stability, safety, and a space free from the growing conflict that seemed to surround Willow lately. But Willow didn't back down. Not even a little. She listened quietly, arms folded, her expression calm but firm. Then she delivered her answer. Scout was coming home. However, Willow did offer something unexpected. If Scout returned, Willow was willing to lift all the restraining orders, including the one against Danny Morgan. For a brief moment, Alexis looked surprised. This wasn't the outcome she expected. But even so, Alexis hesitated. Because deep down, she wasn't sure this was truly what was best for Scout. Still, after a long pause, Alexis finally agreed. She would bring Scout over tomorrow. But she needed time to process everything first. And as Alexis walked out the door, she couldn't shake one unsettling thought. Was this decision about to start a chain reaction no one could stop? Meanwhile, across Port Charles at Crimson, another secret conversation was taking place. One that could blow open a very dangerous situation. Hidden nearby, Charlotte Cassadine was quietly listening. Eavesdropping. And what she overheard made her heart race. Because Jack Brennan had just cornered Nina Reeves. And he wasn't asking politely. He was threatening her. Brennan wanted information. Specifically, information about Valentin Cassadine. He demanded Nina use her connection with Charlotte to find out where Valentin was hiding. And the message was clear. If Nina didn't cooperate, things could get very ugly. Once Brennan finally walked away, Nina immediately turned toward Charlotte. She lowered her voice. And suddenly her tone changed. Now she sounded worried. Concerned. Almost protective. Nina claimed she might need to warn Valentin about something. But Charlotte quickly shook her head. She hadn't spoken to Valentin since the message he sent after disappearing. That was it. No calls. No updates. Nothing. Still, Nina leaned closer and spoke quietly. If that changed, Charlotte needed to tell her immediately. Charlotte nodded slowly. But the look in her eyes suggested something deeper. Something she wasn't saying. And when Charlotte promised Nina she'd give her exactly what she needed, it left one very important question hanging in the air. Was Charlotte telling the truth? Or was she hiding something dangerous? Later, Nina made her way to Willow's house. And this time her walls finally came down. She told Willow everything. About Brennan's. About the pressure he was putting on her. And about the footage that could destroy everything. For a moment, Willow was silent. Then realization slowly spread across her face. She finally understood how far Nina had been willing to go to protect her. Not just as a daughter, but as family. And in that quiet moment, the tension between them faded. Just a little. Mother and daughter shared a soft, emotional hug. But neither of them realized something yet. The danger Nina was trying to hide from Willow was already moving closer. Across town at Charlie's pub, things were far less emotional, at least at first. The place was buzzing with activity. Christina Corinthos Davis was racing around making final preparations for the grand reopening. Everything had to be perfect. Which is exactly why she was so relieved when Molly walked through the door. Molly had come to help. Or at least that was the plan. But Christina noticed something immediately. Something wasn't right. Molly looked pale, distracted, and when she paused to grip the edge of the bar for support, Christina rushed over. That's when Molly finally admitted the truth. Her endometriosis had flared up again. And the pain was intense. Christina's face filled with concern. But Molly quickly brushed it off. She insisted she could handle it. After all, she had been dealing with this for years. Then Christina asked an important question. Did Cody Bell know about her conditions? Molly hesitated. And that silence said everything. No, Cody had no ideas. And Molly clearly wasn't ready to tell him yet. But just seconds later, Cody walked through the door. Perfect timing. Or maybe the worst timing possible. Because now Molly had to pretend everything was fine. And the pain was only getting worse. Meanwhile, at the Quartermain mansion, another conversation was unfolding. One that left Michael Corinthos deeply unsettled. Jason Morgan stood in the living room with him. Calm as always. But there was something different about the way Jason spoke. Something heavier. Jason asked Michael for a favor. If anything ever happened to him, Michael needed to look out for Danny. Michael frowned. That wasn't a normal request. Then Jason said something even stranger. He hinted that he might be leaving towns. For good. Michael's heart skipped a beat. Because Jason didn't say things like that without a reason. But before Michael could ask any questions, Jason walked away, leaving Michael with one disturbing thought. What exactly was Jason planning? Just a few minutes later, Jocelyn Jacks arrived. She bumped into Danny Morgan near the entrance. Danny explained he was heading over to Carly Spencer's place to return a scarf. But Jocelyn offered to take it instead. And as she stepped inside the mansion, she had no idea she was about to hear something shocking. Because Jason was still there, waiting. And when the two of them spoke privately, Jason admitted something important. He had tried to convince Carly to cut ties with Valentin Cassadine. But Carly refused. That alliance was still happening. Which meant things in Port Charles were about to get even more complicated. But before Jason could explain more, another unexpected guest arrived. Charlotte Cassadine. She had been brought to the Quartermain mansion by Jacinda Bracken. And almost immediately Charlotte pulled Danny aside. She needed someone to talk to. Quietly, Charlotte told him about the situation between Nina and Brennan. And the more Danny listened, the more serious the situation sounded. But then something surprising happened. Alexis appeared with news. The restraining orders had been lifted. Danny's face lit up. Because that meant one thing. He could finally see Scout again. And just like that, Danny started making plans. But sometimes good news comes at the worst possible time. Because trouble was already brewing somewhere else. And it was about to explode. Back at Charlie's pub, Molly was reaching her limit. The pain had become unbearable. Christina had just stepped away to deal with an emergency related to the bar, leaving Molly alone with Cody. Cody had brought takeout for them to share. But Molly barely touched her food. Cody noticed immediately. Something was wrong. He asked her if she was okay. Molly forced a smile. She claimed she was just having a rough day. Cody didn't push. Instead, he leaned forward and kissed her gently. Then he told her he had a surprise for her. And rushed out the door. But the second Cody disappeared, Molly grabbed her bags. Her hands shaking. She quickly swallowed a pain pill, desperate for relief. But even that wasn't enough. Because when Cody returned a few minutes later, holding a beautiful bouquet of flowers, he walked into a nightmare. Molly collapsed right in front of him, and Cody rushed forward in pure panic, calling her names. But Molly wasn't answering. And while Molly fought through a terrifying medical emergency, across town, Jason and Britt were about to make a decision that could change their lives forever. But what they were planning could put them directly in the crosshairs of enemies they didn't even see coming. And that's where things start getting even more dangerous. Because the next move Jason makes will shock Port Charles. While Cody knelt beside Molly on the floor of Charlie's pub, panic quickly took over the room. Molly, can you hear me? His voice trembled as he tried to keep her awake. Just minutes ago, everything had seemed normal. They were joking, sharing food, planning a quiet moment together. Now Molly lay curled on the floor, her face pale, her body shaking with pain. Cody had never seen anything like this before. He gently lifted her shoulders, trying to help her sit up. Molly, talk to me, please. But Molly could barely speak. The endometriosis flare had become unbearable. And suddenly, the secret she had tried so hard to hide from Cody was no longer a secret. For the first time, Cody realized something was terribly wrong with the woman he cared about. And he had no idea how serious it might be. At that same moment across Port Charles, another crisis was slowly building. Inside the Quartermain mansion, the atmosphere was tense but hopeful. Danny Morgan was still smiling after hearing Alexis's news. The restraining orders were gone. For months, Danny had felt like part of his world had been taken away. But now there was hope. He could finally see Scout again. He could finally spend time with his sister without fear of legal drama hanging over their heads. But as Danny excitedly talked about seeing Scout, Jason stood quietly in the background. Watching, listening, and thinking. Because for Jason, this moment only made his next decision even harder. He was about to disappear. Leave Port Charles. Leave Danny. Possibly forever. And Jason knew one thing for sure. Danny deserved a future that wasn't filled with danger. Which was exactly why Jason believed leaving might be the only way to protect him. But even Jason Morgan couldn't predict the chaos that was about to unfold. Meanwhile, over at Bobby's, Carly Spencer sensed something strange in the air. Cullum had just arrived for coffee. But Carly's reaction to him was ice cold. She didn't trust him. Not even a little. And as the two exchanged polite but tense words, Carly couldn't shake the feeling that Cullum was hiding something. Something big. When Britt Westbourne came downstairs, Cullum quickly followed her outside. Carly immediately noticed. And instinct told her to listen. So she moved closer, quietly trying to overhear. Outside, Cullum's friendly tone disappeared instantly. Now his voice carried a sharp edge. He praised Britt for getting their research back on track. But the praise came with a warning. A very serious warning. If Britt fell behind again, her medication would be cut off. Britt froze. Cullum continued speaking calmly, as if he were discussing a business contract. But the meaning was clear. Without that medication, Britt didn't have long to live. And Cullum reminded her of something even darker. If she failed to deliver the prototype on schedule, she would spend whatever short time she had left locked away at Steinmuir. No freedom. No escape. Just waiting for the end. Britt's expression hardened. She said nothing. But inside she knew exactly what this meant. Her time was running out. And that made Jason's escape plan even more urgent. Just minutes later, another unexpected meeting took place. Jack Brennan walked into Bobby. And he wasn't alone. He approached Carly with a casual smile. He claimed they had lunch plans together. But something about Brennan's tone made the situation feel staged. Cullum immediately jumped into the conversation. With a smug smile, he commented on how nice it must be to have so much free time. Especially since Brennan hadn't made much progress on the 5 Poppies investigation. But Brennan didn't look bothered. Instead, he calmly explained that the investigation had reached a dead end. Because Gents Sidwell's people were refusing to cooperate. Cullum nodded slowly. But there was something calculating in his eyes. Something that suggested this conversation was more than just small talk. Then something else caught Brennan's attention. Across the room, Marco Rios had just arrived. And he was sitting down with Cullum. Marco looked nervous. Very nervous. Because he was about to discuss something extremely dangerous. Earlier at General Hospital, Marco had promised Lucas Jones he would help steal a dose of Britt's medication. It was risky. Possibly illegal. But Britt needed that medication to survive. And Marco was willing to take the risk. Now Cullum leaned forward asking Marco if he had discovered anything new about Gent Sidwell or Sonny Corinthos. Marco shook his head. He didn't have new information. But he made one thing very clear. Sonny would eventually pay for everything he had done. The tension at the table was thick. But before the conversation could continue, Marco stepped away. And that's when something unexpected happened. Jocelyn Jacks suddenly appeared nearby. And the moment she saw Cullum, she froze. Recognition flashed across her face. Cullum quickly switched back to his fake persona. The friendly caretaker from Windermere. He casually explained that he was wearing a suit because he had a meeting at the bank. Jocelyn forced a smile. But inside something didn't feel right. So she quickly pretended to remember she had class. And she left. Fast. But Marco had seen everything. The tension. The strange look on Jocelyn's face. And once Cullum returned to the table, Marco immediately asked about her. Cullum waved it off. Jocelyn only thought he was a caretaker. Nothing more. But across the room, Brennan had also noticed the interaction. And it made him uneasy. Very uneasy. Because if Cullum was truly dangerous, then both Carly and Jocelyn might be in serious trouble. And Brennan quietly made a decision. He would make sure they stayed safe. No matter what. But the most important moment of the day was happening somewhere far from all of them. At a quiet harbour master's cabin. Jason Morgan stood face to face with Britt Westbourne. And the mood inside that cabin was heavy. Britt spoke first. Her voice was calm, but there was sadness behind it. She told Jason the truth. She was running out of time. If she couldn't complete the project Cullum demanded, her life was essentially over. But Jason had already made up his mind. And his plan shocked Britt. Jason intended to disappear. Not alone. With her. He had arranged everything. A remote farmhouse in Canada. A place far away from Port Charles. A place where no one would think to look. There they could hide. Start over. And while they stayed hidden, Britt would work on reverse engineering Britt's medication. If the plan worked, Britt might actually survive. For the first time in days, Britt allowed herself to hope. But there was still one major problem. The medication dose she needed. And right then someone knocked on the cabin door. Jason tensed immediately. But when the door opened, it was Lucas Jones. Lucas had come because Britt asked him to. And he brought important news. Marco was working on the plan to steal the medication dose. It wasn't guaranteed to work. But it was their best chance. Britt listened carefully. Then she said something that sent a chill through the room. Even if the medication didn't come through, she still had to vanish. Soon. Because if Cullum realized she was falling behind, he would never let her walk away alive. Lucas tried to reassure her. They would find a way. They always did. But even Lucas couldn't ignore the truth. Too many powerful people were involved. Too many secrets were piling up. And at any moment, everything could explode. Back at Charlie's pub, Cody was still desperately trying to help Molly. Employees had gathered nearby. Someone had already called for medical help. Molly's breathing was uneven. Her pain unbearable. And for Cody, this moment changed everything. Because now he understood something important. Molly hadn't been pushing him away. She hadn't been distant because she didn't care. She had been hiding her suffering. And Cody made a silent promise right there beside her. No matter what happened next, he wouldn't let her face this alone. Meanwhile, across Port Charles, the pieces of a much larger puzzle were slowly falling into place. Jason and Britt were preparing to disappear. Nina was trapped between Brennan and Valentin. Cullum was tightening his grip on Britt's life. And Molly's health crisis was just beginning. Port Charles was standing on the edge of several explosive stories. And the next move from any one of these players could change everything. But here's the real question. If Jason and Britt vanish without warning, How will Danny react when he realizes his father is gone? And if Britt's enemies discover their escape plan, will they even make it to Canada alive? Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you believe Jason and Britt will successfully escape Port Charles? Or is someone about to stop them before they even leave? And if you enjoy daily General Hospital spoilers, recaps and predictions, make sure you subscribe so you never miss the next shocking update from Port Charles. Because the drama is only getting started.